to the Verity Podcast.
Welcome back.
We're back chatting once again, as we do. Today we're going to talk a little bit about marijuana, actually.
A good topic.
Enough, yes. A very
controversial topic
integral
sometimes.
topic to the whole reason, well, not the whole reason, a part of the reason we decided to make a product.
Mm-hmm.
April, hon, do you want to just give him a little overview
Overview.
what the purse is?
So, for me,
Yeah, where did it come from? What was the
so
Genesis.
this is the first sample, but to first start with the story, before I show you all the details, it's, well, for me, I'm from Mexico, as you know, and I was very against weed. Very, very against weed. I come from a Catholic school, all girls. It's, well, you know, it's still illegal in Mexico, so I was very, very closed off to it. Even if I had some, like, circumstances where I was close to it with some of my peers and everything, I was just very against it, and I just...
marijuana, you're saying?
Marijuana,
Very against. Not purses.
No, of course not. Come
Probably
on,
not
my
purses.
girl is going to be against it.
Okay.
Well, after a while, I moved to LA. When I first tried it, I had a really bad experience, truthfully. So I didn't
we'll
try
talk
it
about
for
that.
a while.
Interesting.
But when I started knowing a little bit more about it, you get acquainted to it. You got to research. You got to have a purpose and intention to use it. You have to, like to each person is different. So for me now, I'm a user, and I actually really like it. So honestly, carrying weed around is just the flower and everything, the smell, even though it's healthier for you than some, like, some other kinds that don't smell and whatever. I felt uncomfortable with, like, just shoving it in my purse, like the smell of it, like, I just don't, didn't like it. And whenever I try to find some products that I could, like, put it in so, like, it doesn't, like, get my stuff ugly or smelly or, like, dirty and stuff, because it's pretty, crumbly. There's none. I found some, but they were mainly, like, towards men a little bit more, or, like, you can see that they're, like, weed products. So it's like, I didn't really feel...
the vibe you're trying to put out.
Yeah, I didn't really feel like, walking around and being like, yeah, like, I smoke weed. Like, it's just not, I don't think it's like that, anymore specifically. Yeah, exactly. So I thought about all those products, maybe making one specifically for women that we could use in an everyday life without, like, just the purpose of the weed, you know what I mean? And for it not to be, like, weed product, obviously,
I think we recognize that, number one, the products that are being made for and around the marijuana industry aren't made for people maybe that look or think like us.
It's made for, like, marijuana smokers specifically,
and
right?
that's
Or,
like the main identity, is that you're a pothead or a marijuana smoker, and there's nuance there and lots of different kinds, like
way more
April said.
utilitarian rather than fashionable.
Or Rastafarian even,
Right.
with, like, really absurd bongs and pipes and pieces and boxes and carriers and
covered
back
all over
bass
it.
and
It's kind of, like, very extravagant. Like, even, with people that don't know about it, they might be like, oh, really? Like, it's a controversial topic still, because it's illegal in some places. So I don't think it's very, like, embraced by a lot of people yet, and it's still a little bit judged, but not because people, it's just people don't know it.
Point being is we're not trying to signal that we're potheads by wearing marijuana leaves around everywhere we go. And we recognize that there just aren't a lot of products that have been made yet that, number one, kind of that break down the stigma of being a user. Like, you wouldn't assume that April, uses weed. And use is a very broad term, because it's different for everybody. But point being, like, with the purse, we identified that for people that look like April, or that, are young urban professionals, like, or just young people in general, old people too, that don't want to be carrying around, Rastafarian-based products. Like, this was the option, that there was a real opportunity here for us to create one, and probably what we hope will be a very long line of products. Not necessarily always, marijuana related, but noting that, like, hey,
it has to function.
This is definitely part of our lifestyle that is not really being addressed, and a smell-proof purse is a good place to start. So we'll talk more about the product over time. But the main thing there is that, yes, we use marijuana. And where that's a little weird to say like out loud to the general public. But the funny part is that where we started from, April in Mexico, Trevor and I in North Dakota, which is a very Midwestern state, we have certainly come a long way from what we would describe as like the original way of thinking about it. And weed has come a long way in the public perception over the last couple decades as well, kind of actually coming full circle from where it was maybe in the 50s or 60s to, and even before, long before, in different cultures to now. So, I want to start just a little bit about like, what were some of the common things you heard about weed, or what did you think about weed as a kid growing up, not knowing what you know now?
For me, I wasn't around it a whole lot growing up. I mean, growing up in a small town of about 5,000 people, it's not drugs just aren't a really prevalent thing in our area. But I remember like the skater kids sometimes got their hands on some, and every now and then, once I think I bought like an actual bag of weed and smoked some. I remember still even this, and this is gonna sound so bad, but I still remember even using like paper, like printer paper, like rolling it in printer paper and smoking that, which has to be so brutal.
Desperate times,
for your lungs.
Desperate
but obviously,
times.
you don't know what you're doing. You're just trying to basically put this stuff in a container so then you can light it up and smoke it. And then I remember even still getting like cigarette butts and then putting those on the ends of the paper, so at least not in.
How old were you doing this kind of hoodie?
I was maybe like a freshman in high school, I think, when I first did that. But I wasn't around it a lot, honestly. Like, it was just alcohol was a bigger thing for us kids, and we easier to get our hands on. But it wasn't very prevalent for me when I was super young.
Me neither. I think I maybe saw it once or twice in high school. Rarely in college in North Dakota, honestly. I mean, not until the end, which, and then we met some friends that now it became a little more normalized. Not really until the back half of college that I actually see it on a regular basis.
Yep.
For me, like the stigma is or rather maybe just the perception of weed, like in little small town North Dakota, even smaller than 5,000, I'm talking like 1,500 people. Like I graduated with 40 some kids, Right. Is that generally it's like a fear of the unknown, I think.
Of course.
We're a big farming community, so hemp is not necessarily completely separated from the history of farming and agriculture in North Dakota, but weed as a drug, as a THC and marijuana, definitely is. And you would probably consider like a lot of Midwest folks God-fearing people, and those religion and fear of drugs and things tend to go hand in hand for all the obvious reasons. We won't get into that too much, but I think there's general just fear that a couple things. One, you're gonna completely like lose your mind and reefer madness, right?
Yep.
And or just become completely unmotivated and fall off the face of the earth.
Or you'll just become a couch potato.
Become a total pile, And funny now that like thinking about that now and knowing like how many things I've got going on as an adult and like feel relatively successful and that we've done a lot of really cool stuff, all while having been users of marijuana, makes me just like I guess I am my own best proof, as far as a contrarian
down
or
stereotypes.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
good for us.
Yeah, right. So that was I guess some of the stigma was just that you were a bad kid. I think if you were smoking,
you were down a bad road.
You were down a bad road. It was a gateway drug, which by the way is not true, medically speaking, and for us, like
growing up, DARE was a big part of our school programs too.
Which
Just Say No.
What did it stand for?
I don't remember, but once a year we'd have those guys come in and
really?
Just Say No campaigns. Reagan's, I think
it was kind of a legacy out of Reagan, Nancy Reagan's campaigns, war against drug with Ronald Reagan. For us too, like booze was much more prevalent. And that's funny because now my perception is definitely that booze is certainly far worse for you on a regular basis, from a health standpoint, from a side effect standpoint. danger to the general public standpoint, for your relationships, like it just ain't good all the way around. Right. And so the perception of alcohol, keeps it in, obviously in the good graces of the public, but it's actually much more harmful just all the way around. And I think we came to recognize that pretty quickly. So yeah, I think growing up, it was definitely something that got
definitely
buried.
out of my radar. Honestly, growing up, I don't think I ever knew about it, or I ever, it was just, in general, the term drugs. Yeah. It's a no. Yeah. That's it. So it was never a thing. The first time I think I was in contact with it was when I moved to Australia, and I was pretty shocked that people would, a lot of people would smoke it. And one of the girls, actually one of my ex-roommates from Mexico, engineer, super smart, and she would smoke it. She would rather smoke than drink, and it kind of shocked me because I remember still having long conversations trying to convince her, no, you're gonna go like this, you're gonna be homeless, or something. And I mean, look at me now. Now we laugh, together. But it's just, I never tried it when I moved to LA. It took me a couple of years or something to be able to okay, I'm gonna try it. Yeah. And because I've never smoked cigarettes in my life, so I was pretty stressed about it. So I took an edible. Oh my god. Yeah, big mistake, because I don't know anything about it. I didn't know there were quantities and grams and this and concentrates, and also a lot of people use it for medical reasons. So everything's really controlled. Everything's in sizes like medicine is. So without knowing all that, you're just literally taking something that you might not know exactly what you're taking. So even though I only took a quarter, we cut it in 4, I took a little piece. Man, and I disliked it a lot because I just felt super groggy and whatever, everyone's different, but my tolerance was 0.
Seems like the usual go-to for people's first time too, I think, is edibles, because it's I think it's the most approachable for people, because especially
that's scary.
If you never smoked or anything, immediately you think of smoking as this is going to be bad for my lungs, I can't do it. And the perception
of smoking, you kind of feel like a degenerate.
Exactly.
A little bit. You really do. Yeah, I mean, I still to this day feel a little bit. I feel kind of cool.
But it's the edibles that are the ones that could really mess you up. And so I kind of have this love-hate thing with it, because for a lot of people's first experiences, it might not be a good one because of that.
One thing I wanted to just tap on that you had said that I think we should come back to, but is really important. Something that changed your perception was somebody you knew that was relatively productive and successful.
She was literally using the same as me, and I was like, how?
And then going, oh.
Because we would work together, of course we're in college, but we worked together as waitresses, and she would same things, it was not like she was slacking off in college, or she was, straight A's, engineer, which is, it's really hard for me to think about. It's just, and she's great, successful, and you would never tell, because she didn't look the way people that smoke weed are actually portrayed, so I think about it a little bit maybe. I
mean, you look pretty good for a weed smoker. Huh?
Thank you.
Yeah,
thank you.
Yeah.
But I just
it matters, right? Seeing the example of somebody. So I mean, I will say for anybody that's curious about it, look around you might not even realize 100%. Within your group,
your grandpa
who is using, and I don't even like using, because that's a weird word, because it seems like you're abusing it, and I really don't think it can be in moderation. So one of the things I want to talk about were the first experiences you had. So you mentioned the edible and stuff. I want to talk about one of Trevor and mine first experiences, because it actually was pretty funny. But yeah, so yours was edible, kind of?
Well, mine was a quart of an edible of a brownie, actually, and I remember...
Brownie is very variable, though.
The brownie was medical marijuana, and it was pretty heavy.
Is it pre-made, or does somebody make it?
No. It was bought at the dispensary.
Okay.
That's why it was
that
very...
quart probably was legit.
No, it was legit, and honestly, I took just a quart of it, and I remember, I was very adamant, I'm gonna wait, because what if? And I went up to the rooftop, because I was like, of course, and your expectations sometimes are not, I mean, how could I even had expectations, because I never tried it before, but I'm going to see the stars, it's going to be beautiful,
And you were freaking out, man.
And honestly, I was laying down, you know, in the rooftop. This was in LA, and I was like, ooh, like, I don't really feel that much, like, after an hour or so. And I was like, well, maybe I'll go downstairs, you know, to the apartment and take a little bit more. I'm not sure, you know, what's going on. X. And when I tried to go down the stairs, because there was no elevator to the rooftop, I mean, at least, thank God, I lived, like, the floor below. The stairs looked like big and small. Like I felt like I was in Alice in Wonderland.
You had a little bit of the psychedelic aspect, which can happen with edibles, actually, which they're psychoactive. Whereas inhaling won't be nearly as psychoactive.
And I was pretty freaked out because I Googled, like, when will it pass? And it was like hours, because when you eat it, of course, it takes longer for it to get out of your system. So I remember I was trying to get down the stairs, and I literally felt like Alice in Wonderland. And I had to sit because I was, like, grabbed from the rail, and my legs would go downstairs. My arms would not want to, like, unhold. It was very weird. So I ended up sitting down and just, like, as a baby, like, rolling down the stairs.
Really?
And it was just funny.
Smart, though.
And
that was actually, you know, good weed move, good high move on your part.
I felt, like, super thirsty.
When in doubt, just get closer to the ground.
Yeah, I mean, when in doubt, and it would, like, go like this, and I was like, well, you know, like, I'm just gonna, or close your eyes, man.
Yeah.
Looking at myself in the mirror was weird. Then I just started laughing at myself. It was interesting.
This wasn't the first time we had weed, because we smoked once or twice together before and had dabbled on our own separately, but Colorado had just legalized weed for rec use in, what was it,
2016, I think?
Was it the year I moved out here? 2015, maybe?
It was one of those years.
15, 16? I'll have to look it up. But we had gone to, kind of had a friend's ski trip up in Steamboat, which we were flatlanders from the Midwest who loved to try to get out and ski at least once a year. And so we'd have a big group come, and we were still young enough to, like, you know, put 20 people in a house. Yep. And and Colorado had just legalized weed, and they had a rec shop in Steamboat. So Trevor and I had a broken ankle.
Oh my.
From like 2 weeks before, and I was trying to ski still because, like, boot is, like, good, you know, good structure. So we're like, well, I'm probably a little
crazy.
Little hyped up on some hydrocodone, but maybe an edible wouldn't hurt also, which turns out that's a horrible move. I do not advise that, by the way. Yeah. This is not medical advice. But Trevor and I, we went to the dispensary, like, we'll check it out. Do you remember the guy that we got in line behind?
I don't.
Okay, drug dealer.
Okay.
He had been slinging for, like, years.
Okay.
Remember, he gave us the breakdown of what we should get. And he said, well, start with this and this, and, like, how about a Chiba Chew? That's a good place to start.
Yep.
So we got a Chiba Chew.
No.
And we had no idea, like, quantities, amounts, which I do want to talk about today, because I think for anybody that's getting introduced to it, we'll give you some guidelines for how to use, especially for your first times. But we end up with a Chiba Chew and maybe a little bit of flour or something.
I think we got some flour too, yeah.
And he said something like, you know, just take half of that and, you know, let it sit and you'll be all right. You'll be fine. And we took half a Chiba Chew, and I have never been more out of body than that in my entire life. I think it was on Percocet, actually, and which is legit. Like, I had a broken ankle, I just wanted to ski, it was fresh powder, beautiful day, we went out for a half day. Trevor and I get on the ski lift and realize that we are
hit us
way too high to be on a ski lift.
How'd you get down?
And poor Trevor. So here's what happened. Poor Trevor was behind us, and we were on an open air ski lift. And I'm riding up, like, with our buddies, and, like, kind of looking around, like, oh boy, like, okay, I don't even know what's happening right now. And we look back, and Trevor is clinging to the side of the chair.
I don't think it was
yes,
like that.
You're so scared.
I think you're putting that in there.
I remember it yesterday. Okay, like, maybe not.
But I also remember there being
event.
Like obviously like huge ravines too, like in those open chairlifts.
Very high.
And
very high.
And my whole goal at that point in time was like, don't get separated from the group. Don't get separated from the group for my first thing. And that's why I got caught behind in the first place, because I'm not a super strong snowboarder at this point in time.
Right.
Nor am I super strong right now, but
so I got in a little edible.
Added a little edible, and it really adds up. And yeah, getting caught behind you guys, and then being on that chairlift. I mean, it felt like a long chairlift.
It's anxious.
So we get to the end of the chairlift.
Yeah.
And we'll cut this story off eventually. We get to the end of the chairlift, and we get off, and we're going to look at the map. and we remember Trevor's behind us, and we look behind. And Trevor has decided that he's not getting off the lift.
No, well, here's what happened. The whole time then, as I'm seeing the lift in front of me, and obviously not being a person that gets out on snowboards very often, getting on and off the lift can sometimes still be a little bit of a challenge for a new time person,
if
right?
You're a total noob, yes.
And so like in my head, all I'm thinking of is, okay, Trevor, keep your tip up. Keep your tip up. Keep your tip up. Just keep your tip up. And then get up there, and the one thing I didn't do
Just keep your tip up.
was keep my tip up. Yeah. And so the board catches the lift or the little ramp there, and then I kind of like fall off, and I kind of freak out at that point in time. So what do? Is I kind of grab the chairlift then as it continues to go.
Trevor was on a little merry-go-round.
Around and start going back down, and the guy had to run over and stop it.
Stop the lift.
And I'm sitting here like crawling down out of the snow, like just thinking that everybody knows I'm just like high out of my mind, which
by the way, they don't. They don't know.
Nobody knows.
Just act cool, man.
But yeah, and then proceeded to have a long trip back on because I did get lost from the group, which was my one goal. And I got caught on a catamaran or a catwalk. Catwalk, which is like not a very like high incline, and so if you don't have momentum and if you fall, it's really tough to get going again. Mm-hmm. And I felt like I was on that for 2 hours because I would go, fall, go, fall.
Man, Trev, that is hard.
Now, all of these experiences aside, we recovered just fine.
We made it. We're here.
So, okay.
But the first experience, it's...
I do want to talk about a little bit what we advise if you're just getting introduced to marijuana for the first time, or you're new to it relatively, which we're kind of getting our parents into it a little bit and kind of like introducing them to it, breaking down the stigma, because they see us now being successful and happy, and we'll talk a little bit about why we appreciate it so much. But a couple of things I would advise. It's okay to take an edible the first time, but take a small portion of it and don't take any more. Wait it out. If nothing happens, nothing happens, but do not take more. That is the fatal mistake that everybody makes, is they take a little bit of an edible or a lot of bit of an edible,
don't feel anything,
think that's nothing's happening, and then take more, and it gets worse. You got to wait at least an hour to actually feel the full effects of an edible. Don't do that.
Also, know the quantity for your own body. We're all different.
So tends to be that most edibles in retail stores today are about 10 milligrams a piece. That is a good benchmark. 10 milligrams is the typical dosage. That is probably going to get most people high, even habitual users. So half that, even quarter it for your first time. I would also say if you're going to smoke, start slow. Just smoke a little bit. See how you feel. You can always do it again later. Ease into it so that you don't really like fall off the cliff too fast, and you can be comfortable with it.
I think this goes back to even too like people's first time is drinking usually, right? Too. It's like you go hard, and it's like you go straight for like the hard liquor, like I'm just gonna get drunk, and like it ends up being a bad experience when you do that, because as with anything, the moderation is the key part of it.
Moderation is key. You'll figure out for your own self how to kind of ease into it, and then ultimately it'll be a much better experience. So just ease into it a little bit.
Keep giving it a try.
Pump the brakes. So we had all these kind of stigmas and perceptions about how it was going to ruin our lives and all that stuff, when in fact I think it's really enriched my life. So what were some of the things that changed for you guys, that changed your perception, like seeing the gal that you lived with?
Well, honestly, I think it was not just that, because after that I didn't really have any closeness to it, but I think it was in LA. In LA it's very free. Everyone just is, there's all kinds of people, and it was totally legal, so you could smell it everywhere, walking on the street, wherever you were. And then I started like realizing that older people would do it as well, would try it and use it as well. And I started also like learning more about how it would work with like pain or with sleeping issues, etc.
Sort of educating yourself, right?
Yeah, and that's what actually like, I started understanding that each thing had a dose, a specific dose, numbers, kind of like medicine specifically. And I had really bad issues with sleeping, so I started to use it to sleep. you know, just to like, I had really bad issues with anxiety, you know, depression, and just, I couldn't sleep. So even though I was super tired. So.
Which I mean, not getting any sleep is one of the worst things just all the way around for you in your day and your energy. And
even when you're trying to get better from whatever, you know, it makes it worse, and it makes it slower, and it's a circle, you know, vicious cycle. So I started using it slowly, but smoking now. And I started with a vape because I just felt, since I didn't know how to smoke,
cleaner,
I felt very uncomfortable.
And it's more approachable.
A pen is a good place to start.
I felt very afraid of like the how do you do it, and I didn't know how. So I started doing it very like, okay, I'm in my house alone. I'm already ready for bed. I did take my time to I did know I was gonna get hungry and stuff, so I would plan healthy snacks.
So smart.
You
are the ultimate snack. You make killer snacks.
I would vacuum
good healthy
everything.
Healthy ones too.
It's like, no, I don't want to just eat like, I don't know, frosting from the jar.
Whatever's around.
No, whatever's around. It's like, so I try to do like good food and, you know, good snacks and a lot of water, right? So and
for
I realized
you,
it was a really good thing. It changed my
sleep
everyday
patterns,
sleep
energy.
pattern. And it's not like, and I started realizing that it's not like I need it, you know, to sleep or anything. I kept doing the work I was already doing for my anxiety, for everything what was going on inside me, with my psychologist, psychiatrist, etc. And it helped me, you know, and it made me happier. It never, like, it's just about feeling how you're feeling with it. You know, you start knowing your levels, you know, you start knowing, you gotta be in the right mindset as well to do it, and what's your intention. Because it's also not a depressing drug, like, you know, just for sleeping. It also makes you really funny. You can enjoy stuff.
It can kind of, you know, just amplify what's already in your mind. Exactly. And we talk about setting a little bit. We won't get into that too much, but kind of how you approach it matters a lot.
Right, your intention towards it, you know, the fear you got for it, if you're judging yourself for doing it or not, you know, like that can get into your head, and it can just get bigger once you're in the experience. But otherwise, you know, it was pretty peaceful. I would rest up really well, and no hangovers the next day. And I was like, what? Like, how do people not, you know, alcohol? And it's just, you know, it was even, I started realizing I'd have this one experience where I smoked and everyone else drank, because this was just, you know, the environment it was, and everyone was very against smoking. So I even kind of, you know, did it like, you know, privately. But I remember thinking, like, towards that, like, the night came to pass, I started, like, people started getting drunker, and I was just high, you know, by the snack table, of course, and looking and watching how people's behaviors, deteriorated. You know,
nobody looks good drunk.
Couples started to fight. Really? Other people were crying because of the argument. The other one, like, just fell and made, you know, a fool of, like, herself, or whatever. It was just, and I remember I was thinking, like, oh man, you know, and all of them are gonna feel so badly in the morning and regrets, not just physically. And I'm gonna sleep fine. Maybe I'm pretty full, but, you know.
Yeah.
And I was laughing, having a great time, and I did not go to sleep till, like, the party ended, and it was pretty great to just, it was amazing to see the comparison so live, you know.
Yep, 100%.
What changed for you?
Well, I think when I was out of college, and then kind of for a few years after that, we'd go out a lot, Friday, Saturday night drinking, and I mean, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Wednesday, whatever, you know, whatever.
All week.
Whenever you need an excuse. But I think as time went on, first of all, I realized it was becoming a very expensive habit. And then secondly, like, I just, again, comes back to, like, you all of a sudden every Sunday night you got stuck with those Sunday scaries where, like, you're just filled with anxiety about the next week to come, and all you're doing now is looking forward to next Friday to where you can kind of, like, drink again and kind of get again out of your head and not be thinking about life anymore. after a while, I kind of started. I found a guy in Fargo that would actually pick up some, so I just had him continue to give me an eighth each time he would order, and I just kind of started staying in and kind of smoking and just kind of like being in my own little world there. And I found out one of the first things I kind of realized is I started to become a more emotional person, I think.
More in touch with your emotions.
More in touch with my, and I just started, I think, kind of get out of for lack of a better, that default mode, of just like, this is my life.
Yeah.
And it kind of started to expand the possibilities of things that could be out there. And just over time, I realized like this is a more better route that I want to go down. And it was a big reason. Obviously, you were a big reason as well, but it was another reason why I even moved out to Colorado in the first place, because I wanted to be in a place that accepted it, and that I was around other people that also enjoyed that more than they did drinking.
Yeah.
Did you feel like a change, like in health wise as well, like physically, like less tired, your Sundays, what you were
a little bit. I mean, that didn't really change until I probably started to change some other things in my life, like diet and different things like that. But I mean, yeah, obviously you know that you never had those hangover feelings, so that was another pro of it. And I think as those things kind of started to like compound on each other, you're like, this is a much better option than alcohol. Yeah.
And I will say, you guys mentioned the alcohol, but it certainly wasn't just a replacement for alcohol too. Like for example, I was not a drinker. I never really have been. I mean, college, whatever, but like years. I mean, we've been out of college for a decade plus now, and never been a like drinker in that way. And when I found weed, for me, who I'm a type A perfectionist, that I've worked a ton on, I mean, I think I've come a long way, but I will say, like, I honestly, smoking weed in the right time, in the right place with the right people, for me, to your point, kind of broke me out of all of the imagined stress and ways of thinking that I had really ingrained for a long time. Now, you guys have both said something really important, which I think is, on its own, it is not a magic bullet. It is not something that is going to fix you overnight and change your outlook in life and give you this cheery outset. It is really additive if you are already moving in the right direction. And for us, that's really important. We work on not only ourselves personally, from a philosophy standpoint, spirituality standpoint, self-discipline standpoint, motivation standpoint, emotionally, mentally, but also career-wise and work-wise. And when it is in harmony with those things, you will see that is actually adding beneficial thoughts to your life. Yeah. I also think I'm a lot funnier and more carefree when I am high. I don't know if you can attest to that or not, but I do think that is true. Regardless. Generally speaking, like, because I lighten up. And that to me is a gift that I did not have, before I hadn't found a way to do that. So for me, sometimes we joke and we kind of call them like performance enhancers or PEDs, or we like before we play Settlers of Catan or something, we'll like smoke a little bit.
Those PEDs,
but in another way, it actually really is one for me, because it does shift my way of thinking about what's going on in my life. It shifts me into a mode of gratitude, of focusing on my relationships, being present with my people. And truthfully, I think the biggest benefit I've gained, aside from the balance with all the other stuff going on in life, is the enrichment of the relationships around me. Like when we go out and we have what we call a gloam zone, which is the period as the sun is going down, right before it's sunset or right after sunset, it's called the gloam zone. And we typically this is when we typically smoke, is right at, when all the work is done, we call it hay is in the barn, right? And you can just check out and relax, and we actually have some of our best conversations and our most bonding moments at that time. And that to me has been such a gift, and I would say that is like the biggest thing that has been a benefit to me over time. Yeah. So
100%.
Same.
Okay, we're about half an hour in. I maybe want to wrap with just a couple maybe tips from you guys about how to use marijuana so that it is in accordance with what you want to be as a person. If you want to remain productive, like how do you remain productive? When do you take it? For me, I really never smoke or take any weed until like my work is done and my responsibilities are complete. Because that, for me, puts all my anxiety behind me. I feel I can actually really enjoy it. And, I feel like it's the proper time for me. Sometimes on a weekend, maybe it's during the day, but very, very rarely.
Right.
And I do take days off. I take days off just as like a check-in and, to make sure I'm in moderation and staying balanced. But what are some of the other things that you guys...
I would say if it's causing you more anxiety than taking it away, you're probably doing it too much. If you're doing it as
not doing the other work.
As probably. An escape, which some people certainly do. On the weekends is my weekends where I'll smoke in the morning. But what I'm intentional about doing too is like smoking, but then doing something productive with it. Yeah. Because I think it's a habit just like anything else. Yeah. If you smoked and constantly just sit on the TV, sit in front of the TV, eat snacks, that's what kind of smoker you're probably going to become. Yeah. And so I intentionally, I actually enjoy smoking and then going to do the dishes, right? Or cleaning the house or whatever.
Cleaning is a fun one.
It makes those kind of mundane tasks a little bit better, and at the same time, it puts you in a good habit of I can smoke and still be productive. Yeah. At the same time, so I think it's something you learn with time, though. I don't think it's something that you get right away in terms of how you're going to handle weed. And I think as you experience it more, you can do it more and be more productive. But I think initially starting out slow is the way to go. Try it every once in a while, but like I said, try to do things while you're on it too. Whether it's something creative, draw, paint. Even if you're not a painter or a drawer, create something because
good conversations.
You're going to be in that mindset to be creative, and I think, and then it's just about finding your balance kind of after that. But starting slow is definitely
made me think we should almost do a video or tutorial on your first trip to the dispensary. Here's what to expect. It's here's how you should think. Here are all the weird things that you're not going to know.
I was telling April that the other day, those dispensaries, for people that haven't been into one before, they're intimidating. They're so intimidating.
I agree. We'll do a separate video on that, because I think every time I walk into a pot shop, I never feel like I belong there. I'm like, I've been weed for years now at this point, come on. Yeah. But I still feel weird. I don't even know all the lingo.
Yep. I remember the first time I was going to go into one, I actually waited. You were filling up with gas, and I was actually waiting for you to be done because I didn't want to walk in there. Because you don't want to look silly either. Because it's it almost feels like if you guys watch Seinfeld, the soup kitchen, where it's there's just here's your ID, then go sit over there, but you got to wait till they buzz you in, right. and then you feel like you're in a security, it's a whole thing.
It is a whole thing.
I get it.
Any tips from you, Hun, on how to use responsibly?
I think honestly it's just about questioning yourself. Why are you using it?
Make sure you stash it in a smell-proof purse.
Yes, you do not want to be smelling.
Major key. Major key.
But I think it's mostly to start why are you using it? What do you expect?
Be honest with yourself.
What do you expect from it? Is it just I just want to get the giggles tonight, or I just want to sleep or whatever. But if you're gonna do it regularly and you like it, be very honest with yourself with what's the point, in my life, or how does it enhance it? Mm-hmm. Not just how does it make me comfortable. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? For me, I think mostly reading a lot of, I know it's cliche or whatever, but self-help intertwined with with weed, because your mind is just much more open and allows
vulnerable.
That's the way, because it
allows your mind's probably receptive, but we are more vulnerable.
Sure. Exactly. It's more receptive into accepting or questioning, doubting, maybe
now we know why it became illegal.
Maybe I'm not so sure of all the things I was so sure.
Everything I was taught doesn't seem to make sense anymore.
It's just
that is a gift too.
It's
actually.
Just much more open and. I guess also, I don't know. For me, it has helped me just to be more aware. Yeah. Much more aware, and to connect with with people, in a much deeper level, and I appreciate that so much. Plus, ladies, it does help with pain. So.
I thought you were going to say sex right away.
Sex too.
Yeah.
Sex is pretty good.
That too.
We can do a whole episode on that.
And ladies.
That too. But ladies. Talking about something else, it does help a lot
with
menstrual
pain, man.
When you are just, it helps a lot. And it helps a lot with getting out of your head when you're feeling, poopy. Down. Because, without reason, of course. And it just feels, I guess it helps me be a little bit more conscious, aware, and compassionate with me and others as well. So
I think, one thing I would just say, if you are not doing the things you want to be doing in a day and you're smoking weed, it's probably a good time to take a little break.
Yeah.
I think that's how I look at it. If it is not something I'm enjoying because I'm not getting the experience I want, take a break.
It has to add to your life,
but also having good people around that you're with, like, make it a social event too, because that actually helps a lot as well.
And I would recommend to be with people you trust, not in overwhelming spaces if you're doing it for the first time.
You probably get a little paranoid. Maybe don't drop like a huge edible and go to the airport,
Yep.
Right away. Joe Rogan would tell you to, but like maybe that's like a stage 5 kind of like adventure.
Experienced adventure.
That's an adventure.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Anyway, we hope some of these tips helped. We'll be talking more and more about this, mainly because we just generally think it has helped our lives.
Yep.
And some of the products we are going to make will be related to that, but also we want to help change the image a little bit around this, because even where we're from, it is still very stigmatized. And you know what, to each their own. Which is a very North Dakotan thing to say, I think, Midwestern, to each their own. But it's true. And if you're doing no harm and you're actually, improving as a person, I think
I also think that a lot of people that are like very that may seem like they're frowning upon,
they're just
weed
afraid.
and everything. They sometimes, I realize, like a lot of people I know, like, and then when I'm not judging it, they're like open to it. They're like, well, yeah, I kind of like it, but like, I don't want people to think this about me, Yep.
So you're just a trailblazer, honey.
Yep.
Well,
Always.
Anyway,
trendsetter.
I'm very excited to tell you about everything.
All right.
Coming soon.
Okay. Thank you, guys.
All right, see ya.